my phone is on 24%, so when it gets down to 20, it might pop up, but then I will just dismiss it. So today, we just finished Thursday, and that's done. And we have moved on to Friday after Ash Wednesday. And the meditation on the affliction of the soul of Jesus. The first prelate. See Jesus Christ saying to his disciples, my soul is sorrowful, even unto death. The second. Beg for Christian resignation in intense sufferings. Point 1. He began to grow sorrowful, and to be sad, to fear, and to be heavy. Consideration. Man had sinned by misusing the faculties of his soul before he misused his senses and the members of his body. Therefore, by the suffering of his soul, Jesus chose to begin his passion. These sufferings were immense, above all created strength. He experienced them under every form, and no part of his soul was exempted, because he willed to give his heavenly Father an entire and superabundant satisfaction, and to us a proof of infinite love. Application. From the first step in his sorrowful passion, Jesus unveiled the love for men, for each of us, which fills his heart, for we were all present before him. And we can say with the apostle, he loved me and delivered himself for me. The murderers could not touch his soul, but Jesus did what he had no power to do. He suspended by miracle the ineffable joy with which the beatific vision filled his soul, and left it a prey to the terrible agony which the thought of death, and especially a cruel and violent one, naturally causes. Affections and resolutions. Point 2. Then he said to them, my soul is sorrowful, even unto death. Consideration. My soul is sorrowful unto death means that he was overwhelmed with the sufferings and... I have to reposition myself a little bit here because I'm sliding off my love seat. Okay, let's go to the next page. Flip our ribbon. Oops. And it's only this page and a little bit of that one. So, agony of one who dies by violent death and who is pressed down by terrible trouble of mind. Oppressed, it sounds like. What was the cause of this load of sorrow? First, the repulsive sight of the sins of men, which his Father had laid on him because he had offered himself as the victim of universal expiation. Posuit Dominus in eo equitates omnium nostrum. The Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of all of us. Secondly, the vivid and detailed representation of all the torments, all the insults that he had to undergo. Finally, the terrible thought of the uselessness of his death to a vast number of men who would harden themselves in sin. Quinilitus in sanguine meo. Application. Behold then, O my soul, the cause of thy Saviour's immense sufferings. Dwell on them one by one, and see how far thou hast contributed to them during thy life, and particularly since thou hast made a profession of loving and serving him more perfectly. Affections and resolutions. Stay you here and watch with me while I go yonder and pray, for point 3. Consideration. How did Jesus feel in the extreme desolation of his soul? First, he speaks to his 3 chosen disciples and asks them to share his sorrow and watch with him. Then he has recourse to prayer. He acted thus as man to serve as our model. Application. We thus learn what in our interior troubles we may do and what we ought to do. We may seek alleviation in communicating them to a pious and discreet friend, but as men, after all, cannot give us the supernatural strength that we need, we ought to have recourse to prayer and wait upon God. Have you acted thus? Have you imitated those who obstinately shut themselves up when in trouble and temptation, at the risk of falling into dejection and melancholy? Or have you gone to the other extreme of those who communicate their inferior suffering to everyone and forget one thing only, that of resorting to God in prayer and to those whom he has given as guides in spiritual life, so that they may receive counsel and consolation? And I forgot to look up how to pronounce this again. Colloquy with Jesus' suffering. And yes, I do that sometimes. I wait until I've tried everything instead of putting it all in God's hands to begin with. So I think we need to do that. So I hope this was helpful. See you tomorrow.